What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the Tuesday episode of All Canadian. If you can't tell by our backgrounds right now, we have a mock draft going on today. Wade's got the Ottawa Red Blacks and TD Stadium. I've got the Montreal Alouettes and Molson Percival. But before we get into the 6-round mock draft for each team, just want to remind you guys that the Canadian Football Perspective Podcast Network is brought to you by our friends at Fox 40, the worldwide leaders in whistle technology. For 15% off all your return to play whistle needs, visit fox40shop.com and enter code CFP15. Again, that is fox40shop.com. Wade, mock draft today. How you doing?
I am fantastic. It is no longer mock draft Mondays since Marshall Ferguson has Mondays, but that's all right. We get an extra day to do some research, watch some film. We're going to bring mock draft Tuesdays in. It's going to be awesome. We have responded to the Twitter poll that we put out. So we've got the top two answers coming this week. Next week, we're going to get the bottom two answers. Then we're going to bring you some more teams. You guys can vote on that. We'll keep going through once a week until we can kind of balance out the teams. We'll have to do a 3-team week once. Maybe we'll bring in someone for that. But right now we have the Red Blacks. That's why I've got lovely TD Place behind me. Craft Beer Corner up here in the top. Connor's got Molson Percival Stadium, downtown Montreal, nicely sitting behind him. So before we get into that, we're just going to run through the team's draft picks from last year. I'll list off mine, we'll list off Connor's, and then we can kind of break into it from there. So the Red Blacks last year got Adam Auclair, Michael Hoyt, Dan Bassambombo, Jacob Zott, Trayshawn Abrahams-Webster, Brad Cowan, Ray Davis, and Katella Say. So they got a bunch of size on the O-line. They've got some speed at DB, some big guys in the middle. They're ready to go this year. They are definitely going to need to fill out the back end of that defense. Going to look at a lot of guys that can fly around and use their speed to help the Red Blacks at more than one level. So as I'm sitting up here in the booth, I am going to be looking for that kind of talent.
Absolutely. It's going to be a difficult draft for you because there are so many needs with the Ottawa Red Blacks. But running through the guys that my Montreal Alouettes went with last year, started off with my guy, Marc-Antoine Dequoy, who was our favorite player in the draft class last year, probably. And then you get Cam Lawson, friend of the show, episode 1. So go all the way and check that one back out. That was literally just me and a phone. Like I hadn't even asked Wade to jump on the podcast yet. We didn't have mics.
I was still in Tampa.
You were still in Tampa. It was me and a phone and Cam Lawson at the Queen's Arc. So check that one out. They got Carter O'Donnell, who is up in Indianapolis right now playing with the Colts. Benoit Marion, the linebacker the linebacker, D-line, edge, whatever you want to call him, out of the University of Montreal. Brian Harlamana, the linebacker from Montreal. Andrew Becker, Jersey Henry, Brock Gallenlaw, Colton Clausen, and of course, Vince Alessandrini. All of those guys signed in the offseason this year. So some of those guys are going to be heading to camp this summer, and they're going to be looking to add in the draft again. It's going to be a weird year. 2 draft classes stacked on top of each other. Montreal team needs this year. Great offensive team, electric. One of the best in the CFL last year. However, their defense was on the flip side of that coin. One of the worst in the league last year. They were last in sacks. They were in the bottom of the league for interceptions. So they need to get pressure and they need more defensive help. You got to keep up with those wide receivers in the East. So they're going to be looking for linebackers and DBs, a lot of defensive help, a lot of defensive needs that I plan to address in our first 6-round team mock draft. So running through the picks before we get into it, I have 10, 27, 28, 45, and 46.
Yeah, they get to swing around this year. It's unfortunate they don't have the first round pick to kind of go 9-10. But they do get a lot of the 1-2 punches in the turnarounds. And as you guys know, if you play fantasy football or any other sport where you have the snake draft, it's always a huge bonus to be able to get your guys back to back off the board. You can cross off a lot of needs that you want. The Red Blacks, though, they're kind of smack dab in the middle. They get 6, 13, 24, 31, 42, and 49. So they're going to be looking to get some good talent and good spots from each round. Unlike the Owls, who can kind of take the top end of a round justify themselves pretty much.
Yeah. So let's get into the draft. You started off here with the 6th overall pick. I don't have any picks in the first round. The Alouettes swapped that pick with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So the Ticats have the 9th. The Owls have no picks. Wade's on the clock at 6.
Yeah, and we had this one last week. We are going to stick with that. Alonzo Aday, West Virginia. They're going to pair him up with his old friend, Trayshawn Abrahams-Webster from Calgary. The two of them are going to be able to grow together in the backfield, along with Anthony Auclair, and just kind of have the three of them where you can have Auclair at the Sam, you can have Alonzo Aday at safety, and then you can have Trayshawn over at one of the halfback spots. And you can kind of block off a side of the field with just pure Canadian rookie talent. These guys obviously aren't going to start first year altogether, but it's something you could grow into. And it's a lot of speed and a lot of promise that you can have, really isolating one end of your field as national talent.
I don't think it's long before we see Alonzo Aday in the league. And I definitely think in camp this year, he's going to be a guy that they're gonna look at hard for special teams just because of the speed. He's so fast.
And I feel like it's going to be almost bad for Antoine Pruneau to see a guy like Alonzo Aday come in, because Pruneau over the years has started to really slow in his game. And as Alonzo comes in, we talked last week about the smooth transition, the ability to flip his hips with ease and kind of stay on that line. That's going to benefit him so much in this aspect, competing against Pruneau, because it's just going to highlight his strengths even more than he already does with his film.
Yeah, no doubt. Such impressive tape. His feet are quick. So if you're Antoine Pruneau, I mean, as a team guy, you love to see it. As a guy playing the same position, maybe not so much, but Alonzo Aday is going to be a baller in the league for sure.
Yeah, and that's going to put you down at 10. I think we're starting with DBs back to back. There's no way that Connor are biased to the defensive side of the ball, by the way.
No, absolutely not. No, for sure. No.
We've got some offensive guys in here.
Yeah. Marsh handles the offensive guys. We're the DB bias. So that, if it's any indication, if you listened last week, I am staying with the same pick. Wade made this pick last week. I liked it. That is Benjamin St-Juste, the DB from Minnesota, the Golden Gopher. Man, that guy is long. He's aggressive. He plays the ball. He is very good. Keeps his feet under him, quick hips. I think the Owls could go a lot of ways with the 10th overall pick here. I mean, you have to address the linebacker spot with Enoch Mwamba out. You could address the defensive line spot because you have one of the worst, if not the worst, in the league. They went with a guy like Cameron Lawson in the draft last year, a guy who is very good. He's going to eat a lot of double, triple teams, be able to free up some of those linebackers and D linemen. So I don't think D lineman is necessarily the immediate need. And I think if you have it, go get the best DB available in the draft in the way that we think the draft is going to fall out. And that is Benjamin St-Juste in this instance. Montreal guy as well. So Machocha said he does want to go to the talent pool of Quebec. No, it is not the RSEQ. However, he is a Montreal native. So still within that Quebec hotbed.
Yeah, and when you look at their picks last year, I mean, we talked about Dequoy, Marion, Harley Mana, Jersey Henry, Alessandrini. Those are all guys that played out of Quebec last year or for their colleges.
I think Lawson's not that far away in Kingston.
No, he really isn't. I mean, they went out west for a couple of picks like Cartereau, Gallenlock, Clausen. Ray Davis is right on the border of the provinces as well in Ottawa. So, I mean, you went west for some picks, but the majority of your guys are either Eastern Ontario or in your province, and you're trying to stay close to home. I think they're going to keep that true this year as well.
I think Machocha really wants to see how deep the well of Quebec talent is. I don't think he's done going to it, and for good reason. Quebec is a good football province. So I think Machocha is going to keep going to it in this year's draft as well. That puts you on the board with 13, and you are going way out to the other side of Canada for this one.
Yeah, last week we saw Connor, who had the odd picks, take Bryce Bell here, the lineman from Laurier. I don't believe he's going to go as high as that in the draft, so I'm going to cross my fingers that he doesn't for this instance, and I'm going to go, if I'm Ottawa, you got Anthony Auclair last year. go and pair him with a guy that you know is going to match his speed on the playing field and is also going to be able to thump inside with the big offensive lineman. That's Nick Cross, the linebacker from UBC. We've talked about how he led the country in tackles. A lot of them are a yard to two or further back into the offensive backfield. So he makes a lot of plays up at the line. He's also fast enough to move around, make plays, breaking to number 3 or number 2 to the boundary if he has to make that climb as well. He's a guy that's going to provide them a lot of options on special teams too early in his career while he develops. So getting him at 13, I think for them is quite a big steal considering their needs on defense.
Nick Cross's size and athleticism make him so appealing, so appealing. And, you know, we do see this tendency in the CFL draft to kind of stay local, stay regional, pick the guys in your province. But Nick Cross is one of those guys that is just so good across the league that if you're a team like Ottawa out on the East or out in the East, then you're taking a real hard look at Nick Cross, whether he's all the way out in BC or not, because he's just so good. When you lead the entirety of U Sports in tackles, I mean, that there speaks for itself. This guy is a damn good player.
So after Nick Cross, unfortunately, Connor has to wait and sit out for 2 more picks. He'll have the next 2 though. I hoped and prayed that Bryce Bell would drop past 13 because I'm hoping that Ottawa can get him here at 24. You're going to talk about a team that doesn't really need offensive lineman help, but they will always take one if he's available. Bryce Bell here at this point, I would say, is extremely good value for an offensive lineman. You could expect him to develop quickly in a year or 2 and then slide in across one of the 3 interior spots for you. I think at 24, they're going to see him and kind of say, all right, best player on the board. Let's grab him up now and kind of stash him away and develop him for a couple of years. I hope that he's there for them and for our sake, so we're accurate with our mock drafts. But yeah, Bryce Bell, 24.
So you had him going to the same team, not necessarily in the same spot that I had him going, but yeah, Bryce Bell is a guy that I could definitely see ending up in Ottawa. I think they've had eyes on him for a while now. His size is undeniable. I said it last week, he's a raw talent, but he's developable. And you made the point last week about Mark Cordy kind of taking him under his wing a little bit. So we'll see. I think Bryce Bell could be a very developable guy, but I just think it might take some time. But definitely worth like a top 25 selection for sure. His size alone speaks to that.
All right, and now we are going to get Connor's 2 picks. He's going to have 27-28 right at the turn of the round, 3-4 split. So we are halfway through after Connor makes his first pick.
So I'm up back-to-back fantasy football style. I've got 27-28, and I'm keeping it on the defensive side of the ball. You're not going to see me go away from that too much in this mock draft. Montreal is a defensive needy team, and we saw them lose the likes of Enoch Mwamba this year in free agency. He hasn't signed yet, but he is not going back to Montreal. It does not look like they are going to bring him back or plan to bring him back. So I think addressing the linebacker position here with number 27 isn't a bad thought. And Wade made this pick last week. Again, I think it's a very smart selection. That is Tyrese LeBeau, the linebacker from UMass. Another Quebec guy, another guy who has been able to fly around down in the NCAA. There's a few damn good linebackers down in the NCAA. I think Tyrese LeBeau is one of those guys who's shown flashes. He's got the traits. He's got the size that you're looking for. He's a strong tackler. There's a few things I'd like to see him work on. Maybe his feet, his hips a little bit, some of that speed, but he's tough, hard-nosed, very, very good linebacker. So Tyrese LeBeau is the selection here. I think it makes sense, and I think his special teams appeal as well is going to land him a shot.
Yeah, we had this pick slotted in here. It's another Quebec guy for the Owls to pick up. But for them to go 2 for 2 in the start and get 2 speedy defensive players who have played down south, come back up to their home city, really, I think that would be a big help for them in keeping true to their own identity that Machocha has started to form since taking over as the Owls GM. We saw it last year. We're going to see it this year. I think it's a good way to start it off for you.
Definitely. And that leaves me right back, number 28. And I am basically just going through the priority list here. I said they needed DBs, probably first off. Next, you probably need to look at addressing the linebacker. And now, third priority on your defense, getting to the quarterback. Has to be a D lineman. Has to be a D lineman here. And I am leaving Quebec, but I'm not going very far. I am going all the way to the nation's capital in Ottawa. Former Guelph Griffin defensive lineman Elaine Simikinda going with this pick. And, you know, I might catch some heat for this because everybody's going to be like, well, he just transferred. He's obviously going back. Yeah, but he's obviously one of the best defensive linemen in U Sports. If you don't take him in this draft, somebody else will. He's a top 30 pick indefinitely, in my opinion, after watching some of his tape. And another year in U Sports is only going to serve to develop him more. Carleton is a good spot for him. He's going to be playing alongside Shaheem Charles Brown. They're going to be mixing it up. He's going to be getting some looks. Montreal, I think if he's on the board here, they have to seriously think about taking the likes of Elaine Simikinda, one of the best defensive linemen in U Sports. He had 8.5 sacks last season.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy that really messes up a team's pass pro whenever they do try and slide things to him because he's so quick to get around a blocker. It's almost like he kind of shimmies in between it so fast that the help can't get there. I like Simikinda a lot in here at 28. I don't know how high he's going to go because of his size, but the production is definitely there, and we see it every time you turn on the film. He's flashing.
Absolutely. He is he's going to be a player to watch. Absolutely. I'm excited to see him in that Panda game. Hopefully he can't do too much damage, but you are back on the board now, pick number 31 as we enter the fourth round of the CFL mock draft for the Ottawa Redblacks.
And I'm going to go kind of skew here. I feel it's an odd pick for them. I'm going to take Bruno Labelle, the tight end from Cincinnati. Labelle, over his career at Cincinnati, did not have too many receiving statistics. I think he only finished with about 150 yards on his career. But at 6'4", almost 250 pounds, he can still move for a big guy, but he's going to be a great blocker. If you need to jumpstart an offense and you need to jumpstart a team, a great way to do that is to solidify a rushing attack. And in the Canadian game, tight ends that can move are going to create problems when you slice, or you can wedge block with him. You can even use him as a puller on some place, get an extra look. I feel like that's going to be a big bonus to them. It's going to leave Sinopoli out of the box as well, so that he's not banging in there with a higher chance of getting hurt. You can leave him more in the slot to work in space and kind of read off of RPOs if they do choose to go that way. I think the Labelle pick will kind of open up some special teams as well. Obviously, being a tight end, you can play him on field goal, you can play him on punt team, kickoff, kick return. So I think that this pick for them is just kind of a keeping Sinopoli safe, building up your chances of having a strong running attack, and then also providing some special teams aid.
Remember that H-back conversation that we had about Luke Wilson?
Yeah.
So just change the nameplate from Wilson to Labelle. Maybe not with the skill to catch the ball that Luke Wilson had, because he's a pretty good pass catcher in the NFL in his day. But
yeah,
the size, the blocking, I think Labelle, when developed, when worked in and getting the reps that he needs, can develop the hand skill. Like ball skills and hand control is something that is easily teachable. It's reps, it's getting quarterbacks thrown at you, but the size and the blocking ability make him almost an immediate target in the draft for a team that's looking to build a ground game or to just add people that can block, because having extra guys in the box that can block, never a bad thing.
Yeah, and I think with Labelle, it wasn't so much that he can't catch the ball. I just don't think he had the targets available to him. Like, out of 46 games, he only had 20 receptions for 150 yards. So, I mean, his average is pretty good, like 7 yards, 7.5 a catch at that. But at the same token or same stroke, like he just isn't getting the volume of targets. And as we see in the Canadian game, the volume goes up for a lot of guys. So this could be a hidden aspect of his game that he's going to show at their pro day whenever Cincinnati holds it.
The one thing I am interested to see, though, is I'm interested to see him run.
Yeah, me too. I want to see what his 10-yard split is more than anything. I'd really like to see how much he can get off because, as we know in the Canadian game with the waggle, your 10-yard split could be huge for you. You could hit that thing at full speed and not really have to worry about your full 40 time. It's just if you can hit your top end speed by or close to it by the time you hit the line of scrimmage, or in his case, if you're slicing across, you could do a lot of damage.
Yeah, that big frame, it either harms or helps. There's no way around it. So if you can use it and learn how to stretch out and stride, you're usually a pretty quick guy. So I want to see if he has that ability to lengthen out and really stride. I'm interested to see, but I like the point on the 10-yard split because people don't realize how important that drill is.
Yeah, I love watching the O linemen run for their 10-yard split. That's it. Once you hit 10 yards, you just kind of turn it off and hope they don't pull a hamstring. But
Man, you don't need to see an offensive lineman run a 40. Come on.
no, you need to see them run 15 or 10 to 20 yards.
Let me
But
see how they move sideways. Like,
but I'm going to keep you off the board here. I have the next pick in order here at 42. I'm going to stay close to where we are actually in the OUA. I'm going to go with Miles Manilow, linebacker from Western. This is going to be a guy that is going to provide a lot of special teams help for you immediately. We saw on his tape the nose for the ball he has. He has power, he has speed, he has quickness. Those two things are not mutually exclusive to one another. So guys can be quick and have a slow top end speed. Guys can be blazing fast, but if you ask them to turn a bit, they kind of falter. Uh, Miles Manilow, you bring the whole package in. He's also got great size of a linebacker. I just don't know if he has enough games played, unlike Nick Cross, to kind of step in and be there right away. But Manilow, to me, has a lot of promise, like Nick Cross does, to grow into a starting linebacker in the CFL.
yeah, no doubt. Miles Manilow was one of those guys last week that when we were doing the draft, we were like, can we fit him in here? I don't think so. Can we maybe sneak him in here? No, we just, unfortunately, we didn't have the picks last week, just doing a 3-round mock draft for Miles Manilow. But now that we can do some of these later rounds and we can get into the all 6 rounds of the mock draft, we can finally find a spot for Miles Manilow, who we found late when we were doing our U Sports top 20, but we watched his tape and just fell in love. So Miles Manilow, I agree, more reps in U Sports can serve him better. More reps playing at Western is never going to be a bad thing for anybody looking to crack it in the CFL. That is already almost that's like the closest thing to
It's the
a
golden
professional.
seal.
I was gonna say this is the closest thing to a professional program that we've probably got at the U Sports level. I mean, Calgary make an argument, Mac make an argument, but Laval make an argument, but they're right up there too. So
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
Miles Manilow is a great pick.
Yeah, and I'm going to let you take it out again to another Quebec team.
Finally get some picks back. I'm finally going back to the province of Quebec. I'm not going to stray too far from that well. I really don't think Danny Machocha is either. And again, linebacker needy team. They drafted a couple last year and a couple good defensive linemen last year as well. Now I really do think they need to start taking linebacker depth seriously. And now that we can have these late round picks, you heard us talk about him. That is Bishop's linebacker, Lou Mosongu, who is one of the most aggressive linebackers in U Sports. Just a hell of a tackler. Man, he is always in on the play. You heard us question his foot speed and his lateral quickness and his ability to really break and come downhill. Unfortunate that we don't get to see him kind of in open space and one-on-ones in the CFL combine this year, but again, when we get into that tape, I want to see how he's moving sideways. I want to see how he's coming downhill. And then when we do get to see his pro day, I want to see how he can open it up and run. What does his 40 look like? Because yeah, he's a defensive guy and he's going to be doing a lot of blitzing, but being able to run and being a guy at the CFL that can cover sideline to sideline at the linebacker position is vital. And that's how you're going to get on the field.
Yeah, and with Louvre, my question every time we bring him up is the speed, like you mentioned. At 45, you're kind of taking a stab at could he crack the rush and be great? Yeah, he could be a pretty good player for us in specials, but we don't have a lot of risk here at this point in the draft. So taking a guy that you have some questions about, we saw with Ottawa last year taking Katella Say. We thought he was fantastic on tape, but every time we kept watching him, we kept seeing foot speed, and it kept pulling him down. And we didn't think they would drop him that far, but sure enough, it dropped him into the end of the draft. And Ottawa sniped him up, said, okay, well, there's not much risk in taking him here at the end. So I think with Louvre, you're going to see that same kind of process happen unless he can prove people wrong.
So I don't want to make a bad alliteration here, but with Louvre, I got to see how he can move, man.
I like the rhyme. It's fitting. We will take that as it comes.
I'm back up again, though. I got the turn once again in the draft from 45 to 46 to round out my mock draft. Not straying too far from Quebec, though I'm not going left to Ontario. I'm not getting back into this geographical debate with you either. It is left from Quebec to Ontario. I am going to instead go right to the Maritimes. I'm going to the University of Acadia, and I am snagging their big play wide receiver, Glodin Mullally. Again, another one of these guys. Size is your question with him. However, his speed, his hands, his ability to go up for a 50-50 ball at his size is incredible. You saw him. I was watching some tape. I believe they were playing St. FX. He had a fade up the sideline where he absolutely mossed somebody. So he's got the big playability. He's got the speed. And, you know, with a guy like that, you don't necessarily need to get him downfield. You can let him work underneath, get him in space, let him run. So, again, later rounds, I think this is one of those guys that you take a shot on and you see, could he be great? Yeah. So maybe we try to work him into our roster down the line.
And I think with Glodin Mullally here, you're also kind of getting his rights. Like you want him, you want the player, but it's not going to hurt that you have his rights for a couple of years. You can send him back to school, let him build up his weight size, and just kind of get back in the gym where you guys don't really have to worry about him. He can keep getting game reps and he can keep building up. And then when he comes back to you a year later, maybe he has 10, 15 extra pounds, still runs quite as fast, still has his fantastic hands. And you say, okay, now he makes our roster as a kick returner. And then a year after that, he keeps building up. And oh, look, now he's a starting wide receiver for us. So you see the process of building the team and building players here. And I think using your late round picks in this way is really going to benefit Montreal.
There was a guy who was a little bit smaller, a little bit quicker, kind of a returner, wore number 6 for the green and white. Kind of similar. Similar.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if that's what you want to build your team around, I would not be complaining.
Hey, worked once.
I'm going to close this out now. I have pick number 49. The last one out of our 2 teams here tonight, or this morning, I guess. So whenever you listen to the podcast, really. But that's going to be Nicholas Cartaginis from Bishops. My one question, he's got the size. He looks like he has tons of speed on tape. My one question is, how does he hang around with the fantastic route runners? Because being out at Bishops, you're trapped in AUS. And I don't want to say this in a mean way, but out at the AUS, you've got Glodin Mullally, and you don't have a whole bunch of other top-end route runners, top-end receiving threats. So he doesn't really get tested. Maybe gets tested against Glodin Mullally. But other than that, you're just kind of putting up question marks and trying to compare apples to oranges. Well, what if he was on the field at the same time as this guy? You don't know until you see it. And that's my question. And without the combines, there's not really a way we can prove that. But to me, all the measurables add up for Cartaginis. It's just a question of how does he stack up technically against guys. And I think you're going to have to get him into a camp to see. So for Ottawa, that's one of the picks, like I said, with Mullally. You have the size. There's just something that you can't answer right now. So why not get the rights?
And that's where playing in the East-West Bowl really would have benefited some of these guys. I mean, you talk about him, and it was a good point. I didn't think you were being mean. I think that's just the reality of the AUS. But, you know, can he run with, would he be able to run with the OUA guys? Would he be able to run with the Philpotts out in the Cam West? There's a lot of good wide receivers across Canada, and getting into that East-West Bowl, he would have been able to prove that, yes, I definitively have it on tape that I can run with these wide receivers. I don't think he can't do it. I think just, unfortunately, he gets the AUS knock, and it's not fair, but unfortunately, that's the reality of the wide receiver situation in the AUS. You're right. It's Glodin Mullally.
Yeah, and like if you look at the top DBs this year, Dean Leonard, when he was at Calgary, anyone came near him, shut down. Nelson Lacombo, shut down half of his field. Shea Weeks, shuts down half of his field. before he opted out, Tyrell Ford, same thing. You can line him up whoever you want. He's going to take away aspects of the field. Like, you have guys here, even Marc-Antoine Dequoy last year. You just didn't throw the ball near him because it resulted in bad things for your offense. With guys out in the AUS, like, you can see them shut down the field, but who are they shutting down? Like, Dean Leonard, Nelson Lacombo, those guys are shutting down top end receivers like Travell Pinto, the Philpott brothers, Colton Clausen even. Kopczynski from Alberta was fantastic last year. OUA, you've got Corby, Ternowski, you've got Justice Allen's going to be coming out of the backfield at you. Carter Matheson, Calvin
Tommy
Beaver,
Neild was making plays at Mac. Like,
Phil Iloki. Like, there's just guys that go down and down the list of, yep, they were good. They were good. They were good. They're drafted. They're drafted. They're drafted. And in the AUS, you just don't have that. So it's not so much a knock. It's just a question mark.
Absolutely. And I think he would have been able to run with those wide receivers
I do too.
at the East West. I just think that it's a good depiction of, you know, how not getting that East West Bowl really hurt him, or really could hurt him. And again, not having the combine, right? If he gets to the combine, can run with all the receivers at the combine in the one-on-ones and can play 12 or can play 7-on-7, like, not having that, not being able to get on the field is so difficult for some of these guys that they're good in their own right. They're good in their own conference. It's just answering that question mark of what do they look like outside of their own conference.
Mm-hmm. And on that note, that concludes our first 6-round mock draft, where I picked for the Ottawa Redblacks, Connor picked for the Montreal Alouettes. Once again, if you want to get in on the betting odds for these teams before the Grey Cup comes around, you can get on it early over at Bet99. This is a reminder that the All Canadian podcast is brought to you in part by Bet99. We are responsible gambling, and every game starts at Bet99. When you head over there, use the code CFP on sign up to get a 100% initial deposit match up to $600. So once again, 100% of your initial deposit will be matched up to $600 when you use the code CFP on sign up.
Plus 900 odds on those Montreal Alouettes are looking pretty good right now. Looking pretty good. Plus 900 Montreal to win the Grey Cup. I took that action. I certainly took that action.
It's definitely one of the better odds out there for the Grey Cup right now. But they will have more CFL odds as we roll through the season. We will be bringing that to you guys as well. Hopefully they get some draft odds out there so that we can bet on that. We like that kind of stuff. But
cannot wait to get back to Connor's covers for the CFL, for our league. We had a lot of fun with it with the NFL, but hey, Connor's covers CFL. Ooh, looking.
Yeah. It's gonna be wild. There's always some crazy games in the CFL each and every week. So we look forward to that. Catch the breakdown tomorrow with Marshall Ferguson and DT. I think Derek Taylor finally figured out his green screen. Connor and I did have similar issues. It was not just him.
DT, man, it's not just you. That thing is so hard to fold up. Wade had to do it for me. I'm not even joking.
Yeah, I stopped and I was on my way out of town. I drove through Kingston. I had to stop at Connor's, put his green screen in the bag, and then just piece again. DT, it is a struggle. I will give you that. It's difficult. But hopefully for their Wednesday episode this time, they have it figured out. We look forward to hearing what they have in store for us this week. Then Connor and I will be back on Thursday with a coach from Can West that we will be bringing to you guys then. So we're going to hit a couple coaches here in the short run before we get deep into draft players.
So that does it for the Tuesday edition of All Canadian on the Canadian Football Perspective Podcast Network. You always know where to find us at Wade Zank 27, at Connor R. O'Neill, at CF Perspective. We're looking. We hear you guys yelling at us sometimes. We do our best to respond to it. But that does it for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for listening, for subscribing, for doing all that you do. We really appreciate the support, and we will catch you on Thursday.